they had Wilson.
Marquise
Wilson. He had one big catch, but, pretty much a non-factor. And then outside of that, you have like Josh Bellamy, who, can, he can make a play every once in a while, but that's when no one's looking at him. And so, it's really tough right now for the offense.
I watched this game with my dad, and Marquise Wilson came in the game, and my dad's like, Marquise Wilson is still on this team? He's like, what is Marquise doing in here? What the hell?
Yeah. He just got off of PUP like last week.
Well, he was in there. In there. The Giants punted 6 times, and Bears had 0 points in the second half.
That stat alone tells you everything you need to know about this game. The defense held them all afternoon. They had 2 touchdown drives in the second half to start the half, but after that they settled in. And then just nothing from the offense. And you can point to maybe the lack of a running game in the second half, which we saw last week. Just not going to Jordan Howard when he's gashing them. Like, he's getting a good 5 to 8 yards per carry, and still they'll go away from him. And you see what happens. Like, they just have nothing when their running game isn't on point.
Yeah, and John Fox doesn't really like Jordan Howard that much from just watching his usage. And you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I know I've been complaining about this a lot because there's just no logic behind it whatsoever. Jordan Howard has a great first half. We saw it last week. He had 77 yards through 2 quarters. Came out, only had 5 carries the rest of the game. Same with this game, too. We had like 70 yards going into the halftime. Ended up with only 5 more carries for 5 yards. There's just no real reason behind the move. Like, I'm not totally sure why. And it's not like we didn't have a lead this week either. Like, we had a lead at halftime. So there's no reason why you can't still run the ball. And even when you're down, like, they still need that consistent run game to set up the pass game. And this is why I have a problem with John Fox. Reasons like this.
Yeah, we've talked about John Fox's lack of trust in Jay Cutler. That's obviously warranted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to ask you this right now. Is this Jay Cutler's last game in a Bears uniform?
I would say yes, because I think the shoulder injury is going to keep him out. And I definitely don't see him coming back next year. So if it is the end, kind of a sad ending to I don't even know how you characterize his career with the Bears.
Hey,
but
he's the best Bears QB in franchise history.
Statistically, yes. He had one good year where we almost made it to a Super Bowl, but I guess this is kind of a fitting way for him to end, just kind of disappear into the night type of thing. It's a little sad. We've become accustomed to Jay Cutler here. He's been here for a while now. And to kind of just see him go will be a little sad, but what can you do? I've seen people talking about him possibly retiring at the end of the season. I think that's just hearsay right now and just maybe speculation, but I could possibly see it happening because he's always injured. He hasn't played a full season, I think, since 2010.
Yeah, I think part of me thinks that he might want one more shot with a competitive team, but what competitive team is going to give him a chance? Mm-hmm. I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, and if this hypothetical competitive team who's looking for a QB out there, Tony Romo is going to be available too. So if you're choosing between Jay Cutler and Tony Romo, you're both guys who can't stay healthy to save their lives. You're going to go with Tony Romo.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with Jay. I hope he does keep playing and he goes to a team, maybe a contender. There's teams out there that you plug in Jay Cutler and they could maybe be something, but that's still. We'll see on that front, at least.
Yeah, we'll see him next season when he comes to Soldier Field with some other team and throws 4 touchdowns.
the revenge game that could happen, it will be great.
Titans this upcoming week. Marcus Mariota at the helm, leading the way. You want to talk about the Titans a little bit?
Yeah, the Titans are one of those teams that don't make a lot of sense. One week they look great, the next week they look awful. I definitely think they're a team on the way up. Marcus Mariota is starting to become that top 5, top 10 QB that we thought he could be. And they have a pretty good roster overall. They have some issues on defense that they need to fix and all that. But that offense is really explosive. And with that offensive line being so good and having DeMarco Murray really set up the pass game, they're a scary team. But they do have some issues that I think the Bears can exploit. I don't think they're going to win this game, but they, just like in this Giants game, we kind of knew they weren't going to win, but it's not like they're still in it to the end. I feel like it'll be a similar situation this week. I don't know how you feel.
I feel a lot of things about the Bears right now. And, optimism is not one of those things. So I'm just going to say that.
I don't blame you.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm also going to call you out right now.
Yeah.
On live recording.
Oh, God.
You are slamming your phone down on the ground. And it's loud. So I'm going to ask you that you just hold your phone in your hand.
All right. I'll put it in a soft
place. Softly, because it makes noise and microphones tend to pick up that sound. So if you're hearing Blake just slamming stuff around, that's what it is. I just called you out.
Wow.
People are gonna know that you just put your phone down very loudly.
I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna get better. And,
all we
see
can
what
ask,
comes out.
All we can ask for is improvement. You're better
That's
than
why
the
I
Bears.
practice.
All right, practice. All right.
Moving on once again.
Jimmy Butler's your dad?
He might be.
Well, apparently Jimmy Butler is Blake's father. And, I'd be all right.
He's the godfather.
He's the godfather. Let's talk about the Bulls here on their circus trip. A couple really good games, the past two in LA at the Staples Center. Of course, the Bulls go on to play, if you're listening to this, it'll probably be Tuesday, tonight in Denver against a beatable Nuggets team. Jamal Murray is someone to look out for in that game. I'm going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
But let's talk about their trip to LA a little bit. The Bulls lose a close game to the Clippers. Pretty emotional defeat. They were up by 19 points at one time and were in control of that game for the most part, but the Clippers have been red hot. And the bench play was a real story. The Clippers bench outplayed the Bulls bench by a wide margin. And they definitely have more depth than the Bulls, especially with some of the injuries that the Bulls have. McDermott's not back yet. Paul Zipser's out, even though he doesn't really play.
Love Zipser.
Zipser Hive. You know who you are. If you're listening to this, you'll appreciate that comment. But yeah, that Clippers game was pretty emotional. You can tell the Bulls really wanted it, and they should have won that game in hindsight. But it was really impressive to me that they came back and beat the Lakers at Staples after an emotional loss. They decided to rest Dwayne Wade before that game on the second night of a back-to-back on the road. Mm-hmm. Blake, do you think that was a good move?
Yeah, I do. You're going to have to find spots where you can rest him. And playing back-to-back after... I don't know what his minutes were, but I feel like he played a lot in that Clippers game.
I think he played about 35, 36 minutes.
Okay, so like a little bit over what he usually plays. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's, terrible to bench him every once in a while. He's getting up there in age, obviously. And you want him fresh for when you need it. So, it's necessary. I don't know how you feel about it.
IMO, this is the correct move.
Yeah.
100% the correct move. At the beginning of the season, there was a lot of dialogue between Hoiberg and Wade in regards to his playing time and in regards to if he was going to play back-to-backs. Especially on the road, I think it's a good idea to rest him. Mm-hmm. His numbers in the second game of back-to-backs in general they haven't jumped off the page at you at all. But playing an emotional game like that one against his good buddy Chris Paul in LA, and then going and playing a Lakers team you should beat, even though they've been impressive this season, you rest Dwayne Wade. Yeah. I think he's been very open about that. Fred and him have a good conversation going about that playing time, because you're going to need Dwayne Wade come April in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And, I'm all for resting older players on the second night of a back-to-back in a winnable situation. Some people will argue, why don't they just rest him during the Clippers game and play him during a more winnable game? I'm not sure. That's a conversation between Fred and Wade, but I think it's the right choice. I really do. And
yeah,
I bet he goes off in Denver, even in the high altitude. I bet he has a really good game because he's rested and ready to go. He'll need it because Jimmy played around 40 minutes, and he was their horse in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They beat down on a good Lakers team. D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, major improvements with Kobe retiring.
Yeah. Larry Nance Jr.
Blake's favorite
Gotta
player.
talk about him.
He was everywhere.
He's a good player. He's actually a good player.
He knows where to be on the floor, and he's been a nice surprise. Well, not really a surprise, but people know he's good.
Yeah.
He's a good player. Jimmy Butler had 40 points. Just an insane game from him. And throughout the season, I've been very surprised with just how strong Jimmy is as a player and also physically. He's able to kind of bully through guys, get to the line a bunch. His mid-range game continues to be great. He didn't attempt a three the entire night.
Wow, really?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I know he didn't make
it.
one.
I don't remember him.
He scored 40 and he didn't make a three.
Well, like you were saying, like early on, you could tell like the Lakers just straight up couldn't guard him. Like all their guards are a lot weaker than Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very apparent from the tip. Like, he got whatever he wanted in the lane.
I mean, you had Nick Young, Swaggy P, trying to man up Jimmy Butler, and that's just not going to go well.
Yeah, and another thing, this is going back to the Wade thing. If they can kind of pick their spots on when he's going to rest, I think Hoiberg probably knew this was probably a better game to rest him based on the matchup, because they're that much better with him against a team with not as good of defense in the backcourt. But, he knows that guys like Rondo and Jimmy can kind of carry the load, especially against a young team that's kind of still figuring it out. I don't know.
Yeah, just the trust level with Fred and his players has vastly improved this season. I think because there's just open communication a lot better. I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to read off some stats for you, and then you tell me where you answer the question.
Yeah.
How does that sound? So where would you rank Jimmy Butler in regards to players in this league? Is he top 10, top 15, top 5? Then here's some stats for you. He is tied for second in the league in win shares with a 3.1 win shares. His plus minus is 7.9. That's good for 5th. His player efficiency rating is a 28.3. That's good for 6th in the league. And his value above replacement is 1.2, and that's good for 4th.
Yeah.
Those are some real stats.
That's pretty solid.
It's very good. And I'll answer this question first. And
yeah, I want to hear your answer first.
Jimmy Butler is a top 10 player in the NBA. And at this point, you can make the argument that he could possibly be the second best player in the Eastern Conference, behind LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
Because LeBron's always going to be one in the East. You have guys like DeRozan showing out this year, averaging ridiculous numbers, carrying that Toronto team. And then there's guys like Jimmy Butler who play for a Bulls team that has exceeded expectations, that a lot of people didn't have their eye on to be real competitors at the beginning of this season. But they've really shown us wrong. And the biggest reason behind all that is Jimmy Butler's play. For sure. So I think he's a top 10 player, probably around the 9th, 10, right on the fridge. At the beginning of the season, I would say he was probably the 15th best player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So Jimmy's a real deal. Make sure you're watching this guy play because he is a treat to watch.
Yeah.
And don't take him for granted. There's been a lot of stuff